Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Too cold for a vegetable garden? Many herbs can be grown successfully in a window. Also, fall is the time to plant spring bulbs. That's just ahead of the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Dr. Kelly. Dr. Kelly is a retired horticulture professor, and Lee Sammons will be joining me later. Dr. Kelly, always good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's just a joy and a pleasure to be here, as you know.
How about that? This is going to be fun. So let's talk about indoor herbs.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you know it's going to be getting really cold weather soon, and to extend your harvest of fresh herbs, it's always good to bring a few pots in before the first killing frost. And some of the good choices in my particular idea of it are these that I brought along here today, and a few of them require a little bit less light than some of the others. Now, when I say less light, I mean they still require a good bit of sunlight, preferably in a south-facing window if you have that. But you also can use grow lights. But let me back up and tell you about those that require a little less light of the ones that I brought. Parsley is one that doesn't require just totally full sun all day like most of the herbs do. It will do okay with a little lower light. And of course mint. Mint can just about be grown anywhere. So it's a good one to choose for the lower light situations. And chives also doesn't require,
I didn't know that about chives.
And rosemary, which is really, really easy to grow indoors if you don't overwater it. You cannot overwater this plant, and that's what kills most indoor plants is overwatering, particularly those that do not like wet feet like rosemary. And it's, of course, some of these are evergreen throughout the winter for us or further south. You know, but basil, I'm telling you, you have to bring it in because it gets cold weather. It doesn't even like below 50 degrees. So that's a great choice for an herb to extend the harvest by bringing indoors because it's gone, buddy, when it gets cold weather. It is an annual. Oregano, let me see here's oregano. Oregano is a good one too to grow indoors because, and then in our climate, it can stay more or less evergreen unless we have really harsh weather. But it's a good one, you know, for people live up north or wherever that it gets really, really cold, to bring that one in and grow, because everybody likes oregano, right? What am I missing? Oh yeah, thyme.
The thyme.
Yeah, the thyme is a good one to bring in too, you know, because it just wants to sort of get really sick looking in our winters, or if it's doesn't die out completely like it tends to do in my garden.
It gets sparse. You know?
Yeah, it does get very sparse. Thyme is sparse. Yes, it is. Okay, so much of that nonsense, we need to move on. So, well, one thing you can always about vegetables, when we talk about vegetable gardening, is those that you don't eat the fruit or the flower, the bloom, like broccoli or something, they can have a little less light, like parsley and lettuce and, you know, the root crops like carrots and beets. Anyway, so that's why those, you know, are some that will, you know, do a little better with a little lower light. But again, low light not meaning 2 hours of, you know, a light in the room. So they need a south-facing window, and if you don't have that, which a lot of us don't, you can buy, you know, the grow lights, which they're all over the internet. You know, they're very, very popular now for people for seed starting and things like that. So there's no limit to the combinations and the ways you can get them, and because herbs and succulents require real high light in the wintertime, these are real popular with those kind of people that grow those kind of plants indoors. And incandescent lights and some of the LEDs just don't have the broad spectrum that plants require for photosynthesis.
Got it.
But they are, like I say, grow lights out there that help a great deal. So, the ones to not overwater, of course, are all of them, particularly the rosemary, the oregano, the Mediterranean herbs. You know, rosemary, oregano, what's that other one down there? Thyme. So those you just have to be really careful about. So, how do we do this? So what do you do? How do you set all this up? Well, you know, plants require a little bit of humidity. They like a little air circulation. How do you do that in an old dry winter home?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do. So one of the things that you can do is put your herbs in a little pebble tray, like I have here. This, Chris had to bring this in because it weighs about 40 pounds.
It is heavy.
And the reason it does is this is, you know how you had those little tabletop fountains? Yeah, you had the rocks and stuff around. The thing, worked about a year and got scum in it, and you're like, well, what am I going to do with this now? So I threw the pump away and the little pyramid, and I thought, man, that'd make a really good little plant tray. So, it works really well for that purpose. And I have my pretty rocks in here, but the idea is, y'all, that if you water the plant, a little bit of water is going to stay in here, and that causes some humidity.
Okay.
Now, the bad part of that is that if you have moisture and organic matter, it turns out that fungus gnats, the dreaded indoor fungus gnats, and you can't get rid of little buggers, and they like organic matter of any kind, soil, whatever, to do their reproduction type cycle. So if you water from the base, you're not getting the soil wet, and you don't have moisture out here, so you don't have the problem as much because they got to have some moisture too. But the other thing is, then you can put either really sharp sand, like concrete sand or river sand, which is called sharp sand, because it has sharp edges and it will gut the little critters as they crawl across the top of the soil. Or you can use the diatomaceous earth, which we were talking about previously, that works for slugs and a lot of other things, and gardeners know of diatomaceous earth.
Yes.
So that can be used too to prevent the fungus gnats. Now once you get them, you can get rid of them by putting out the little yellow sticky traps or doing insecticidal soap. But it seems contradictory to say that, always water from the bottom, so you're not, getting the wetness and the fungus and all this mess that can happen with root rot. You're getting it all to drain out. But then and keep the dirt out of this thing, because then you have a breeding ground for the gnats. Right, so, but then you say, well, I don't want to cause a big scum mess, and I thought of this coming over here, and I have done this, but I forgot. But you got all this water sitting in here, and you're thinking, well, they don't need to sit in water. That's never good for a plant that's not like a swamp plant. So get your turkey baster, ladies, and suck the extra water out and squirt it down the sink. It works. I tried it. Yeah, you have to move your little rocks around a little bit and get down there and then just squirt it in the sink. Yeah, to keep the keep the funkiness out of your little.
How much water would you put in here though?
Well, I would for it to be taken up from the bottom, to water. I would probably put in this little thing about an inch, maybe. And then I'd watch it, and it may you not have to suck any of it out. The plants suck it all up, so maybe you don't have to do that. But you just don't need them standing in water is the key, and you don't want a breeding ground, for some of the fungus little things.
So let's take a look at the diatomaceous earth. So you just kind of
the thing though about the diatomaceous earth that I don't like is once it gets wet, it's ineffective. So you have to put it on dry soil at the top. So that's another reason to water from the bottom. So yeah, we tilt it over. See the kind of white powdery stuff? But anyway, yeah, it works pretty good as long as it stays dry. Which is kind of like, well, daggum. You always have to put out more slug bait and stuff because it's, once the diatomaceous gets wet, you got to reapply it.
It's ineffective.
Because it turns to more like talcum powder. So, anyway, well, let's go back to some of the other things we need to think about. You need to, use a plastic pot because clay can dry out in our indoor environments. Our glazed clay would be okay. Needs to have holes in the bottom because I don't care how careful you are, you're going to put too much water if it doesn't have holes in the bottom and it dries, flows on through.
That's a true statement.
So, And the light requirement, again, you can use the grow lights, like I said, and I have been growing this now for about a week under my, how a lot of people in their kitchens have the under-counter lights?
Oh, yes.
That under the cabinets, under the cabinets, they got the lights. So I put this up, to get it up close to the light, I put it on a TV table. But it's just a little table, and I think that works pretty good.
So that actually works pretty good?
Yeah, it works pretty good. I mean, there's better setups if you use the grow lights. Now, I'm telling you, I'm a believer in the grow lights. And
I see.
Actually, way, way back in the midst of time, as an early gardener, I got my husband to build a little table with a frame that held 2 fluorescent light fixtures And there was even grow lights back then, like 40, 50 years ago. They had them from different companies.
All right.
So my daddy bought me several of these lights. And so I had Jerry then build me this table with this frame, and I had them on these little dog chains that I could move the lights up and down, you know, according to how my plants grew. And so I found that old table when we cleaned out an old building the other day, and I got it all set up. And one of even the old fluorescent thing, you know, the old fluorescent light fixtures, they weigh 50 pounds. You ever know, pick one of them up? So I set it all up, and the darned if the lights did not still work.
Wow, so they did.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I took a picture and sent it to y'all, and it looks kind of a pink, puts kind of pink glow on the plants. But they grow like son of a guns under that light.
And it's still effective.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, amazing. So, I mean, they work. They work.
So, Doc, give us your take-home message for growing the herbs. And
Oh, okay. Well, just be vigilant about watching them and making sure you do not overwater.
Yeah.
Try to figure out to get the light requirement right so they will grow. And if they're not growing, it's obvious to you because they'll be elongated and spindly.
Good point.
And have weak, you know, stems and yellow leaves. So, you know, they work pretty well. Now, if you make it all through the winter with them, if you hadn't cut them all down and used them in cooking and stuff, and you've got them still in the spring, you have to be careful moving them out because they've been growing indoors under a lot of different conditions, so you have to kind of acclimate them, you know, to bring them back outdoors. But it's a lot of fun to have fresh herbs during the winter.
A lot of fun, Dr. Kelly says. Can't you tell? Thank you, Dr. Kelly. That was fun. Thank you much.
This is the Swiss chard we grew last winter in our annual bed, and we transplanted it here in the spring, and it's been doing well ever since. But now we have a problem. If you look at this leaf and even most of these plants, this thing is chewed. This is a caterpillar. I can tell that because if I look down right here, I can see caterpillar droppings. They look like little grenades. And so I know it's a caterpillar. Now I've searched through these plants and I can't find any of them. It is likely the imported cabbage worm. They like to hide during the day, so they're hard to find. You can tell that because of the amount of damage that we have here, and also that we have entire stalks that have been cut off. So it's likely the imported cabbage worm. But it could also be the cabbage looper. But either way, the treatment is the same for both of them. All you need to do is spray with some BT or some Bacillus thuringiensis. That's an organic caterpillar acide. They'll eat that, it'll give them a stomach ache, and they'll die. And then our chard will, after it has grown new leaves, it won't have this damage anymore. We can enjoy it through the winter and into the spring, and maybe we can even get it through next summer as well.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Hi, Chris. This is fall season, time we want to be thinking about planting our spring bulbs.
Okay, so what do we need to do to prepare our beds for those bulbs?
If you've got a bed, you want to loosen up, till it some, so that it'd be easier to plant the bulbs. There are several different ways that you can plant the bulbs with several different tools.
Okay.
All of them work better if the ground has been tilled or loosened.
Okay.
Right.
Now, what are some of the tools that we need to use?
Today, we have several different tools that you can use. We have a hand trowel if the soil is loose that you can pry out the soil and do it. A lot of stores sell this type of bulb planter that was old-fashioned from standpoint. It's very hard to dig a hole if you don't have really loose soil. So if you have 3 or 4 bulbs, that might be fine. If you're planting 100 to 200 bulbs, that's pretty hard work.
It's going to be hard.
Hard work.
Okay.
Other tool we have today is one that has a drill that goes onto your regular portable drill that you can use in the yard. Okay. And that's very easy to drill a hole in loose soil.
Okay, I've actually used that before.
So everybody uses this.
Okay. All right. Now, what kind of bulbs will you be planting for us today?
We're going to be planting some tulip bulbs today, and we also have some narcissus that we can, daffodils that we can plant today.
Okay. Now, when is the best time to plant
Best time to plant is in late November and 1st of December. Okay. You want the soil temperature to draw down to about 50 degrees. Okay. And usually that's when the leaves have already turned and then we're starting fall and past peak color season.
All right. So you want to demonstrate to us how you put the bulbs in the ground?
Tulip bulb has a top that we want to make sure that that's up. Okay. And the roots on the bottom. We recently planted in the springtime. Fall is because the roots are growing during the wintertime to grow. Okay, we want to plant them. Here we had dug a hole. We're planting a multiple group of tulips so that we'll have a nice cluster in our landscape. It just won't be one individual planted in a row.
Now,
so
how deep do we need to plant those?
you want them about 5 inches deep
5 inches,
when
okay.
you plant them.
Okay.
Okay, and once you have planted the tulips, you want to make sure that you cover the soil back over and make sure that you water it well.
Okay. So we don't have to add, you know, any.
You don't have to add any
fertilizers or
nutrients.
anything?
Most of our tulips or bulbs are not heavy feeders.
Okay.
So if you haven't done a soil test, then you can do that. Make sure where your nutrient level is.
Okay. All right. So next you demonstrate using the drill?
Yes, we can use the drill. And what that does is just augers down into the soil, makes a nice hole for you, and it comes out. And then you have a nice hole to plant your daffodil bulb in this right depth. And just cover it over. So it makes it real easy to plant.
Okay. Now how deep was that? Just in case
That was
somebody
about
wants to know.
5 inches
That was 5
deep.
inches deep.
5 inches deep.
Gotcha.
So that's the way you would plant them in the fall, but it makes it a lot easier if the soil is tilled up.
Sure.
With this type of planter, you can plant in soil that has not been tilled.
Okay.
You can go down into your yard in a hard bed. So if you're wanting to naturalize a lot of bulbs, then this would be the tool that you want to use.
Okay. All right. So if you just want to use a plain old trowel though?
You want to take a tiller or a shovel and loosen it up.
Just loosen up. We still want to loosen up, right? So we can get the
you
bulbs
want
in
the
there.
soil loose, because this will not cut through hard soil unless the bed's been loosened up.
Okay. And you just demonstrate that for us though, just using that since we have it tilled
If the
up.
soil is loose, then what you want to do is twist and turn. It'll pull all the soil out.
I got you, right.
And then you have a nice hole to put it in. And this is about 5 inches deep, so
Right.
that's what you want to plant it. Then you just knock your soil back out.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that being pretty tough if the ground is not
Yeah,
tilled.
if the ground's not loose, then this is really a hard tool to use.
Okay. Now, can you explain to us about actually storing those bulbs though? What's the best way to do that?
Right, you may be purchasing the bulbs earlier
Sure.
than 1st of November. So you want to put the bulbs in some type of refrigeration, about like your refrigerator, 38 to 50 degrees, to keep them cool for about 8 weeks before you plant the tulips. Make sure that you don't have any type of fruit in there, because the ethylene gas will kill the flower bud in the tulip bulbs.
Okay.
On that.
All right. So once you do that, then
You're good
pull
to
them
go.
out and you're good to go.
Pull
Everything
them
is
out
fine?
and good to go, and soil's cool, plant them and forget about them.
Okay. So the bulbs have to have some type of chilling
They
requirement.
have to have
right?
chilling requirements to be able to bloom properly.
All right.
If you don't do that and then we have a warm winter, then they don't bloom well.
Okay. Well, Lee, we appreciate that demonstration with the bulbs.
Glad to do it.
All right, thank you much.
It is that time of year, y'all, to be thinking about bringing in your house plants that have been outside all summer enjoying the nice warm weather. Well, now it's getting colder, and tender plants like this Dieffenbachia have to be carried indoors if we want them to live through the winter. And what do you do before you do that? Well, you need to inspect them really well to get off any little trespassing insects or even frogs. I've carried in tree frogs before, which are kind of nice, but then again, they're kind of bizarro in the house. And you also need to probably clean your pot, get all the algae off, and you need to tip it over. And a lot of times you'll have slugs and pill bugs and other little undesirable critters that will be coming in with the pot. So I'd clean my pot up real good, inspect it to make sure there's no insects or anything like that, and make sure you don't have fire ants, because I have actually brought in fire ants and just didn't know it. So you need to make sure that you inspect the pot for that and take measures to prevent bringing those in.
All right, here's our Q&A segment. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
These are some excellent questions.
Yep.
Here's our first viewer email. I have a 4-year-old orange tree I grew from seed. It has thorns. Will it ever have fruit? And this is Virginia from Russellville, Arkansas. So what do you think about that?
Well,
Kelly?
yeah, I commend them for,
I do. I
yeah,
do.
four-year-old, it's pretty good size, looked like
From
in the
a seed.
picture.
Yeah.
I saw the picture. But the thing is, when you do that, it's like growing a lot of our fruit trees from seed. You are just hit or miss whether you're going to have it come true to form, true to fruit of what the parent was. Because, you know, to develop all these really great fruits, we do a lot of crossbreeding and even grafting.
Yeah.
You know, so it could be that the rootstock, you know, the top died, the sign died, and the rootstock is coming up from the root. you know, with that. But now if he grew it from a seed, then he's definitely gone back to the original
See, that's what I thought,
parents.
yeah.
So he could, you know, he could get fruit. He may not.
Right.
You know, but probably he will. But they say, from what I have read about orange trees, some from my friends in Florida, they say they got to be at least 9 or 10 years old anyway before they're even going to think about having fruit. So good luck. Yeah, I mean, if he enjoys having the tree, I'd say just go for it. See what happens.
Yeah, and
Peter?
the thorns are a natural thing, especially with seed-grown trees. You get lots of thorns. Young citrus tends to have thorns on it. As it gets older, you get fewer and fewer thorns. But if you get a water sprout up in your tree, it will have thorns. Or if you have a new branch growing from close to the base of your tree, it doesn't have to be off the rootstock because a lot of them are grafted. But it will, it'll have thorns. But those thorns will disappear as the tree gets older.
Right.
But yeah, probably a lot of times you're going to end up with a strange fruit. It will fruit eventually. But it might be, you know, it might be really bitter. It might have lots and lots of seeds in it, things like that. If you're looking for a orange to actually get fruit off of to eat, probably the best thing would be to go to your local nursery and buy an orange tree from them.
Yeah, I would say go to your local extension office there in Arkansas. Yeah, they would definitely have publications on
citrus.
fruit trees, yes, that you can grow in that area for sure. But yeah, I commend Virginia for trying it. Yeah, I definitely
I do too.
It's a fun experiment.
It's always fun to try to grow
good.
something from a seed fruit tree like that. Yeah.
I think that is good. So thank you, Miss Virginia. Appreciate the picture as well. Good luck. Here's our next viewer email. Every year, my vegetables get leaf spots and wilt in June. How do I get rid of this sickness from my soil? And this is Mike in Zone 7. He says it happens to his green beans, his peppers, onions, eggplant, cutes, etc.
Yeah.
Can you help him out?
Well, I think that, I mean, in our climate where we are in the South, in our high humidity and heat, we just have to almost do a preventive fungicidal program with our vegetables because you're just going to get leaf spot. Now the wilt is kind of something else. I'm not sure but what that might be, like you were saying earlier, Peter. It could be a case of overwatering, whether he's doing that or not. But there are soil-borne pathogens that cause a wilt. So if he's
Southern
growing,
blight being one that just came to mind.
Yeah.
And
so
lots of water encourages that.
sure, it definitely does. And it's nothing you can do about that. You about just got to move your plantings because it's there in the soil, you know. So.
But yeah, no, there's nothing you can do to treat your soil as a homeowner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd really watch your watering. Make sure you're not overwatering. Make sure you're not overhead watering. Make sure the water is being applied directly to the soil and not in a violent way. So don't spray the soil so it all splashes up. Yeah, so if you just like the hose dripping on the bottom of the plant, at the soil level would probably be the best way to water it. Just make sure you don't overwater. Maybe you're in a low spot, so kind of look at that.
Yeah,
grow your plants up on a little hill, raise the area right around them. That might help.
Like it.
But then, the fungicide treatments.
Yeah, I think he really needs to develop a program, and the Extension Office can help him with that, obviously.
Help him with that.
What kind of fungicide and insecticides you can use to kind of keep your diseases under control, because you're going to have diseases when you grow vegetables, on your beans, the peppers.
Definitely in a Zone 7.
Oh, yeah.
Humidity or whatever.
Right
so a couple
here.
things I like to mention. I think Peter knows where I'm going with this. I love cultural practices, right?
Sure.
So crop rotation anytime you're dealing with vegetables.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a must.
Yeah.
Right? So mulch, I think, is a must. Straw or pine needles.
To keep the
splashing
back.
down.
Right.
The impact of the splashing. I'm always big on resistant varieties because there are some that are out there.
Good point, Chris.
Right. So resistant varieties is something else. And then lastly, I think adding organic matter to the soil helps though, because those microbes can help suppress diseases. Right at the end of the day.
Good point.
So
good
those
point.
are the things I think about when I think about vegetable gardening and cultural practices.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why you're such a good gardener.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So thank you for that question, Mr. Mike. Experience, it's the best teacher. Here's our next viewer email. When should I bring my poinsettias inside, and do I leave them in a well-lit room? And this is Melvin from Tupelo, Mississippi.
Just right down the road.
So, Mr. Melvin, we're going to get out of the way. We're going to let Dr. Kelly have this one. She knows a little something about
well,
poinsettias.
You've given me every one of them.
So what do you think about that?
Well, He needs to bring it in probably sooner rather than later because we're getting on in close to the first, killing frost, and it definitely will kill it. So, and it doesn't like even really cool nights. So we've been getting some, pretty cool nights. So I would say you need to probably go ahead and move it in. And if getting it to flower is going to be a whole nother issue, and he didn't ask anything about that, so I'm not going to address that.
Okay.
He's just saying that in a well-lit room, yes, obviously, because it's a plant and it needs high light to stay vigorous and do well. So yeah, well-lit room. And actually, a south-facing window would be ideal during the winter because you're going to get that low in the sky, southern sun. So, and this is a highlight plant. So, for it to do well, it's going to need a really bright window, or some artificial light that's pretty broad spectrum to be more like sunlight.
Got it. Anything you want to add to that, Peter?
Watch your watering.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
That
Yep.
exactly. Good point.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Good
can
point.
kill them by overwatering real easy.
All right, that's a good point. So, hope that helps you out, Mr. Melvin, from Tupelo, down your neck of the woods, right?
Yep.
All right, so, Dr. Kelly, Peter, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. We learned so much, don't we?
Yeah,
We
sure,
learned so
we
much.
do,
So
yeah.
thank y'all so much. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about growing herbs indoors or out, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.